Have you ever been deep into a game and just thought, wow, this is amazing, but you couldn't quite put your finger on why? Well, it turns out there's a real science behind the fun, a way to break down what makes our favorite games tick. So let's dive in and explore the blueprints of game design.
The field we're exploring today is called ludology. It's basically the formal study of games, not just as fun things to do, but as these really complex, interesting systems. Ludology gives us the tools and the words to analyze how games create that magic and why they work the way they do.
So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the basics of ludology, and then we're going to look at three of the biggest frameworks people use to understand games: MDA, FDD, and the elemental tetrad. And to wrap it all up, we'll talk about how to choose the right lens for looking at any game.
All right, first up is the MDA framework. That stands for Mechanics, Dynamics, and Aesthetics. This one is really cool because it's all about looking at a game from two totally different perspectives: the designer who actually builds it and the player who experiences it.
Let's start with mechanics. You can think of these as the nuts and bolts of the game. They are the fundamental rules, the raw code, the building blocks. Things like how high can your character jump, how fast can they run, how much damage does a certain weapon do. It's all the hard-coded rules.
Next up, we have dynamics. So, if mechanics are the rules on paper, dynamics are what happens when a player actually starts using those rules. It's the gameplay that emerges. For example, the mechanic is that you can jump, but the dynamic is you using that jump to pull off a tricky combo or to find a hidden shortcut. It's the game in motion.
And that brings us to aesthetics. Now, this is a key point. In the MDA framework, aesthetics is not about how the game looks or sounds. It's about how the game makes you feel. Are you feeling the thrill of competition, the joy of discovery, that feeling of camaraderie when you're playing with friends, that emotional response? That's the fun. And that's what MDA calls aesthetics. This slide right here shows the core idea of MDA perfectly. Designers and players experience the game from opposite directions. See, a designer starts with the mechanics, the rules. They're hoping those rules create interesting gameplay, the dynamics, to hopefully make the player feel something specific, the aesthetics. But we, the players, experience it in reverse. We start with the feelings, the aesthetics. Those feelings come from the gameplay we create, which is all based on the rules. So the big takeaway is simple. Designers build rules. Players experience feelings.
Okay, let's look at our next framework. This one is FDD, which stands for Formal, Dramatic, and Dynamic Elements. This approach gives us a more structured, almost like an architectural breakdown of a game.
So, the F in FDD stands for formal elements. These are the fundamental building blocks that really define a game as a system. They're what separate a game from, say, a movie or a book. They provide that core structure that everything else gets built on top of.
And there are 7 key formal elements. First, you have the player interaction pattern. Are you playing alone or against others? Then the objective. What are you trying to accomplish? You've got the rules that tell you what you can and can't do, and the procedures you use to follow them, like rolling dice. Then you have resources, like money or health, the game's boundaries that define its world, and finally the outcome, how it all wraps up.
Now for the D, dramatic elements. This is the layer that gives meaning and context to all those formal rules. It's the story, the world, the reason you actually care about getting those resources or achieving that objective. It's what creates that emotional investment.
The dramatic elements are broken down into 3 parts. We can see this pretty clearly with a classic like Donkey Kong. The premise is the basic setup. A gorilla has kidnapped someone. The characters are the people, or apes, involved: Mario, the princess, and Donkey Kong. And the story is the actual plot that unfolds as you play through the levels to rescue her.
The final piece of FDD is dynamic elements. And yeah, this should sound familiar. Just like in MDA, this is the game being played. It's where simple rules can collide to create these complex, unpredictable situations. This is a super important concept in game design called emergence, where the gameplay becomes way more than the sum of its parts. It's also where players can create their own unique stories just through their actions.
All right, on to our third and final framework, the elemental tetrad. This model looks at a game as a whole, a complete package made up of 4 essential interconnected parts that are all influencing each other.
And this image illustrates the idea perfectly. The tetrad consists of mechanics, aesthetics, story, and technology. As you can see, they're all connected. If you make a change to one element, like updating the technology, it's going to cause ripples that affect all the others.
So let's quickly define these. Mechanics are the rules of the game. Story covers all the narrative elements. Technology is whatever makes the game run, whether that's a powerful game engine or just a simple pair of dice. And aesthetics, in this framework, refers to how the game looks, sounds, and feels to our senses.
Now, this is a really crucial point, so we don't get confused. Some of these words mean different things in different frameworks. In MDA, aesthetics means the player's emotional response. But in the tetrad, aesthetics means the sensory experience, the graphics, and the sound. Totally different. And mechanics in the tetrad are just the rules, separate from the technology that actually runs them.
A great way to think about the tetrad is to picture an iceberg. It's perfect for analyzing a game as a static object, as it comes in the box. Some elements, like the sensory aesthetics, are the visible tip of the iceberg, but others, like the underlying technology, are hidden way down beneath the surface. So, we've just looked at 3 different frameworks for understanding a game. How do they all fit together, and how do you know which lens to use when you're looking at a game? Well, this table sums it up perfectly. If you want to understand the player's emotional journey, you should use MDA. If you want to break down the fundamental structure and rules of the game, FDD is your tool. And if you want to look at the game as a complete, interconnected product, then you'll use the elemental tetrad.
The really important thing here is that there's no single best one. They aren't competing with each other, they're complementary. They're just different lenses, and each one helps you see something new about how games create such powerful and compelling experiences from what are, really, just a simple set of rules.
And that leaves us with a final thought. Think about your favorite game, the one you've sunk hundreds of hours into. Which of these lenses helps you understand it best? Is it the emotional experience of playing it, the elegant structure of its rules, or the way all its core parts work together in harmony? Applying these frameworks is the first step to truly understanding the science behind the fun.